guess if that's our segue off it, OKC trades Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. So supposedly a report came out saying that Josh Giddey
Mm-hmm.
did not feel comfortable coming off the bench for his role, and kindly requested a trade. It's an interesting thing. I don't know Josh Giddey very well, but you would figure surely he would know that he's on a good wicket in terms of finals opportunities that he would stay put. But clearly, young guy wants his own team, so he goes to Chicago and they get a really good defender in return to pair with Lou Dort, who's already a really good defender. And you have to feel OKC has more potential for moves. They didn't give up any picks for that. They just gave up one player. So is OKC already priming themselves for a deeper run than what they had this season?
I think that's a no-brainer. Of course they are.
And
I'm not sure how there's a take on this, man. OKC finished with the best record in the West. They're one of the youngest teams out there. Again, injuries is a key component here that any organization has to avoid. But I think they've probably learnt a few things with their history with talented superstars, young talented superstars with Durant, with Westbrook, with Harden. Okay, and I think there's a lot more camaraderie, all right, in this sort of group. They definitely want to play together, they want to grow together, and they want to win together. And I think right now, clearly, um, SGA, Jalen Williams, and Chet are the cornerstones. And Giddey was, in all honesty, a lot of the stuff you watch after games and post media and little stuff like that, you never saw him in these groups. Yeah, you always saw these three guys, and we knew they were the top best guys, but you never saw Giddey sort of hanging off one of these guys or jumping in there. And it was not shocking that Giddey, despite his talent and also his flaws that he can't shoot in the bigger sense, is that he's being moved because I don't think he actually really fit that well from an eye test with this group from that chemistry perspective.
it's not a bad observation. I think uh, it reminds me a little bit of the process Philadelphia 76ers, right? So Embiid and Ben Simmons are the standouts from that whole process. But I think people forget Michael Carter Williams was rookie of the year with them and did really well. And they also drafted Jahil Okafor with the number one pick as well. And neither of those two players were on the team when they were having success and doing the actual playoff runs and getting the free agents. And I think that's the thing with OKC, kind of floating. They get Paul George paired up with Carmelo and Russell Westbrook. And then when they finally move on from him and Westbrook, they kind of faltered a little bit. And Giddey was really good. And Giddey, it's early in his career, so we don't know. But maybe Giddey is a player who, when you give him the ball, yeah, he can do good stats, right?
Well, I
18 points, 7 rebounds, seven
I,
assists.
I
But
actually really, really like this trade for both teams. Okay,
mm,
and from a Giddy perspective, yes, I read the reports too that he asked to be out of OKC. He didn't want to play a six-man role in that sort of sense. And true, false, I don't know. Probably, I guess there's a sense of a young player that wants minutes and wants to be have the ability to sort of show his game in that sense. So fair enough. Maybe there's a trade-off that he goes, I'm willing to leave OKC, clearly one of the best teams in the league and going to be probably a really powerhouse team for the next 5 to 10 years, potentially still even. All right, in that sort of sense, that I'm willing to go somewhere else. And the fact he landed at the Bulls, I think, is a great landing spot for him. Okay,
mm,
I've harped on about the Bulls for 2 years now, give or take, that they needed a pure point guard. Yeah, when they lost Lonzo Ball, I keep saying this, man, it just sticks in my head that when they lost Lonzo Ball, they were first in the East. Yeah, and Lonzo Ball was that pass first guard, and I'm not saying Giddey's necessarily as good as Lonzo Ball as he was at that point. Okay, and he's much younger, obviously. I think still a few years younger than he was at that point when Lonzo Ball was still playing on the floor at that point. That but he's that right fit. I think right now the Bulls should sit tight. I don't think they should go and make any crazy moves. I think they give DeRozan some money. They give him at least a couple more years here and see what happens. They bring Levine back and hopefully they get him healthy because he didn't play that many games this season. All right, and let's see what they can do. Can they grab a play-off spot, not a play-in spot, top six spots in the East, and we all know the East is weak, with a pure point guard that they've sort of lacked for all these years. Yeah, and Kobe White now has obviously elevated himself to a starter and rotational player, and it's really good. Man, I think the Bulls shouldn't go crazy right now. You know, if they suddenly tear the core apart again, I think, I don't know. I feel like they're hitting panic too early.
I think I think ironically they will hit panic a little bit. I think they're going to start collecting some young assets and go for a bit of a rebuild, right? I think you could convince a couple of teams to part with young players like that and get returns. I think the surprise for a lot of people was the fact that Alex Caruso, pretty lucrative defender that the entire league would be happy to acquire, goes for one player and there was no picks involved. But then there's connotations as well. Alex Caruso is on the last year of his deal. So yeah, you get him for a season, but then there's implications immediately for you, in which you either have to flip him again or you have to re-sign him, and his salary cap that goes with that. But it's an interesting trade to be put of already, considering the draft is yet to occur. Obviously, the draft will happen later this week, and then we'll have some more action to talk about. And yeah, I mean
I think
that's one big thing that's happened.
I
But
think I think on that note here, and we talk about, basically your first question is the OKC's done the prime to make another leap here? And look, right now they next season that they want to make conference finals. Yeah.
hmm,
Anything less than conference finals would be a step back, and then now they got to go, what's going on? What is the pieces we need to add or subtract here in that sort of sense, which is not a great suggestion. So, they need to make conference finals in theory, maybe even get out of the West, but the West is always getting deeper. Yeah.